come and gone, and we talked up a storm about our team, about our form and how it could be. And when the new week comes around, the talk around the town is what happened across the nation in the footy. Tuesday night, we're talking footy.
Hello everybody and welcome to Talking Footy. Surprisingly, the final eight has been sorted out with one round to go. There were some one-sided matches on the weekend, but in many ways we're set up for what should be a great finals contest. James Heard coming along just a little later in the program. With me, as always, Caroline Wilson and Robert Walls. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Good evening. They have got some form, haven't they, the top eight, which is great. Maybe 7 of the 8, perhaps. Hawthorn is suffering because they've got injuries, but a lot of the top teams on the weekend had resounding victories.
They did, Bruce, and I think it's good for the footy public that we're going to see the good teams in and playing some real good form. And of course, I saw Brisbane there on Sunday, and they've won 12 in a row. And have a look at that, Essendon, they've won 3. A couple of losses, only by a goal or so. Port Adelaide have been terrific. Carlton, well, you never know with the Blues, but a big win over Collingwood. Sydney had the 5 or 6 on the trot, and of course they missed 1 or 2. But Adelaide, I've been really impressed with the Crows. I think they're playing strong, aggressive football. Look out in the finals.
And how fantastic that all those 7 teams, apart from Hawthorn, are going in with virtually their best lineups. Yeah. All the stars are going to be playing in the finals.
And Richmond's one of those teams. We've left them off there because they didn't win by a wide margin on the weekend. They won by just 4 points. But, Robert, we've asked you to put the 8 teams in order of form right now. So we've put you under the gun. And I've just got to ask you straight away, do you honestly think that the Bombers won't play in the grand final from your list on the right? Because you've got them 3rd behind the Lions and the Power.
I think the Bombers need a couple more weeks to get 2 or 3 of their gun players into absolute best form. So I still think Essendon will play in the grand final. You can't go past Brisbane, who've won 12 games in a row. Port Adelaide, they've been terrific. They've won 7 of their last 8 matches. And then Essendon, of course, they'll be there. I mentioned the Crows. I just like the way that they're playing. Sydney, they had that string of wins, dropped a couple. Carlton, I would have around about that 6th spot. Now, you might be surprised with Richmond because whilst Richmond, I think they're about the 7th best team, they have won 5 of their last 6 matches. They're all against teams that are in the bottom 8 at the moment, and the team that did beat them was Brisbane. And I think the Hawks are struggling. They've only won 5 of their last 13, Caro, and you mentioned injuries to star players, and that's the reason.
Well, we've sort of written off Richmond already, haven't we, this Friday night against Essendon, but how fascinating if they did somehow miraculously win and play them again next week.
I think they've been insulted, Richmond, this week. I think they may be beaten badly this week. Who knows? Anybody can be beaten badly by the Bombers, but they deserve more respect. They've earned it this year. 6 weeks ago, you and I walked through the park at the MCG before a Friday night and said this is D-Day for them, and they've done nothing wrong since then. No, nothing wrong at all.
Has Matthew Richardson been the one big difference? Is he the 5 or 4 spots on the ladder difference
and
this
Ottens,
year to last year?
Richardson and Ottens improving by an extra year.
I'm really looking forward to Friday's game just to see how the Bombers approach Richardson and Ottens. I think they are the key. They're the key to the Richmond team. They take the most marks and they take contested marks and they kick goals. And I'm just really curious to see who Kevin Sheedy plays on Ottens and Richo. Fletcher certainly will be one of those players, but who will the other one be? You know, Henneman's out injured. Could it be Jacobs? Will it be Wellman?
Might depend on whether Gale plays, because Ottens may have to do a fair bit of the ruck if Gale doesn't play. What about the teams that missed out that played in the finals last year? Just basically a sentence. Melbourne, grand finals last year?
I think Melbourne will play finals next year.
Caro, the Kangaroos?
I think the Kangaroos have got a lot of rebuilding to do, and I hope the noises Dennis is making about young players at the moment isn't repeated into the pre-season trade.
Geelong for you? Wolsey's already had his go today. They lack stars.
Yeah, a big go at Geelong.
Well, they do lack stars. Look, Gary Hocking was a star. Now Gary's at the end of his career. Then you look at probably players like Ben Graham, Ronnie Burns, Riccardi, who, to me, they're not quite star players.
Wouldn't say there's certain finalists next year. It's interesting, Mark Thompson will be getting a contract extension over the pre-season. I'm not certain about them either.
Bulldogs?
They're the team I'm the most confident about for next year. I think their list, their younger players, and maybe I've just been convinced by Terry Wallace over this year, but I reckon they've got some pretty promising young stars, and if they do have this clean out, they're promising to have, I think on the field anyway, things will be pretty healthy.
I reckon the Bulldogs will slip, Caro. I really think that they'll spend the next 2 or 3 years out of the 8, but with a chance to step up with the Murphys and the GN Syracuses and so on.
Two things on the Bulldogs. Their CEO's resigned, Mark Patterson.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's a bit of a Greg Miller situation. Has Mark Patterson just come to the end of the road? Has he done all he can do? But it's pretty amazing that it's happened just 1 week after the President got up last week at the AFL meeting and said, if we don't get $2.1 million over the next 3 years, we won't be around next year.
And what about the extraordinary statement, Ross Glendinning on Adelaide Tab Radio this morning, saying that now that the Bulldogs are out of the 8 in the finals, Ross being the chairman of selectors of the Dockers, we're now going after him.
Terry Wallace couldn't back down on his commitment to his players.
Well,
now.
I wouldn't think he could, Caro, because he's come out so strongly to say that he'd definitely be with the Bulldogs. But here you've got Ross Glendinning, chairman of selectors with the Dockers, saying now they're out of the race. Well, we're after him. But,
now, the Spin Doctors have been big on Collingwood all year. They've gone from 7 wins to 10. They're finishing in a very disappointing fashion. Have they done a good job this year, and where are they at?
I reckon they've done a reasonable job. They've got the youngest list. Only won 2 of their last 8 games. I reckon to go from 10 to 13 wins next year is much bigger ask than 7 to 10 this year.
I think after the Ansett Cup, though, we were so excited about them, and on that sort of form, they've been disappointing. Obviously, a lot of those players have just become exhausted, haven't they? Fraser, O'Brien, etc.
They've run out of gas. Mick Malthouse was replaced by Ken Judge out west. I mean, Ken Judge tonight has presented himself to the board, the West Coast board. There'll be no decisions made tonight or no announcements, that's for sure. Where's Ken at?
Look, it doesn't look good. It hasn't looked good for Ken for weeks. I've known Ken for a couple of years and I like him. And I mean, obviously I know his shortcomings. I think financially they would be crazy to sack him at this stage, given all the problems they've had. And I also believe that you look at what he did for Hawthorn and the list he built up there. He did some really good things at Hawthorn, and I don't know whether it would be such a stupid thing to keep him for another year and give him one more go. Kevin
Sheedy supported him today, I see in the paper. Look, the tension was on after the game on Saturday night. They were badly beaten by the Bombers. Ken Judge was asked at the press conference a number of times whether or not his communication skills would be an issue tonight, and let's see how it unfolded and eventually ended.
It was made very clear where everything was at. There's a review going on in the club. I can quite understand the review going on in the club, and you know, I'm part of that review.
Do you accept that you would be part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If they say that your man management skills aren't good enough and your communication skills, would that be a fair criticism, do you think?
I think we've had enough, mate.
No, I'm putting on your side here.
He's not happy, is he? I mean, is it a fair go at him in a situation like that to keep peppering away at him?
Look, I mean, there's a suggestion that those things aren't the forum for those sorts of questions. I don't agree with that. If a coach comes in and gives a press conference, you can ask him about his coaching to any extent that you want, in my view. He was right to walk out because he was obviously going to lose his temper, and he did the right thing. It was sensible to walk out. Probably a couple too many questions from the journos, a bit of one-upmanship there.
Woolsey?
Oh, that's a tough situation. His team's just played. It's the 5th quarter. The coach doesn't want to be there, but he's forced to be there now because his sponsors, all the sponsors, signs behind. He's happy to talk about the game, the players, and they keep at him with that. You know, you can only test a man so far.
You can only ask a person about their coaching skills and man management skills so many times.
And they do talk to one another a lot out west, don't they? I mean, they get to know each other so well over a year. It's not only coaches that might be moving, it'll be players as well, obviously. Has the marketplace ever been as tough as it is at the moment? We're talking ridiculous money for, if this is true with Barry Hall, 1.5 for 3.
That is one of the most silly suggestions I have read all year. I'm not knocking the story. 1.5 million for Barry Hall. He doesn't deserve anywhere near that.
No, he hasn't earned that. But to get a player to go from one club to another, they will be paid above odds.
But that's
with
double
Gehrig,
what he deserves to get paid, isn't it?
It probably is, but for a player to leave and go to the Dockers, they'll have to pay more than what he's really worth. But I think that's ridiculous.
Well, speaking of managers, etc., Ricky Nixon actually got his way, didn't he? Wayne Carey's at least going to get 1 week off. He got a week's suspension tonight for this on Darren Gasper late in the game.
I just cannot believe that Wayne Carey got only 1 week for that. Now, I'm pretty angry because have a look at that. Darren Gaspar, one of the fairest players going around. It's way off the ball. You can see by Gaspar's reaction, he's not impressed at all. And for Wayne Carey to get 1 week for that, I think is disgraceful.
He was antagonistic, Wayne, on Friday night, and very aggressive, wasn't it? That wasn't the only incident.
I think he was trying to get out of a trip to Monaco.
Oh. I can't believe you've asked me that question.
I was only joking.
This is with Wayne Campbell, who could hardly talk after the match. You could see him swallow it in there. I mean, he's given the other captain, Rory Hilton, well, that probably was
I think that looked
fair.
worse than it was, the Rory Hilton one. But when I found out that he'd pleaded guilty, it was way behind the play, off the ball, and he gets 1 week. It's wrong.
Paul Barnard got a week too, which in the context of the season has a lot more ramifications, and Gary Moorcroft got 2 from the VFL match. So the Bombers, Kevin Sheedy suggested that Moorcroft might have played this week. We've got James to ask about both of those.
I wonder if any of those will get a fine for being suspended.
Well, you're talking about Crawford now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Shane said today that he wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, that would really surprise me. That would totally contradict what I've been told by the Hawthorn Footy Club.
You've been sitting with the All-Australian selectors today, and the All-Australian team will be announced next week, next Monday, am I right?
Yeah, Monday night, Bruce.
Monday night. Darcy versus Primus, they were in the spotlight. It was almost like it had come down to one match. I think Primus might have put his head in front, don't you?
Yeah, poor old Luke Darcy. He had the fumbles and the jitters. Look, he's had a fine season, Luke Darcy, and Matthew Primus has too, of course. But I guess probably in most people's opinion, the 2 best ruckmen in the AFL went head-to-head. And it certainly turned out a night for Matty Primus.
This passage of play, it's just unbelievable stuff, isn't it? I mean, he just takes them all on. I mean, one hand off, a bit of kuda-fides about all of that, and then gets it back and on he goes.
I think he's a wonderful leader. His second and third efforts are better than anyone I've seen. I've seen classier ruckmen, obviously the Farmers and the Nichols and so on, but I don't think I've ever seen a ruckman try, and that might sound like a simple thing to try. I've never seen a ruckman try as hard as Matthew Primus.
Are we talking about the All-Australian captain, Rob?
Well, look, he's obviously captain of Port Adelaide, but there are another 3 or 4 or 5 who come into contention.
Wolves's ears just went a little bit redder than normal there. You might have struck a chord there. We have no inside information we can honestly tell you on that.
Not that we haven't tried.
Goal umpires. Getting into the field of play. Robertson ends up kicking the goal. This is extraordinary. In fact, the goal umpire nearly puts it through himself for a goal. Bang, goes back, and then Robertson comes in, straddles the goalpost, which we're told they're supposed to do to get in the right position, but it's affecting the game. There he is.
Well, they're told to get in that position so they get a perfect view of whether the ball crosses the line, but we've seen plenty of examples this year where the goal umpires actually hit with the football. I think I'd prefer the goal umpire to stand back a metre, get out of the field of play and trust his eye.
What about the young boundary umpire who did it tough at Shell Stadium? I mean, you really feel for him. It was a windy day. He doesn't look like he's had a whole lot of experience, and the pressure was on from this point on. I reckon the palms would have been sweaty. He's feeling it, and the umpire called time on again. Up she goes. The crowd have given him heaps, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. Have a look at this.
I was down there, Bruce, and as you can see, it happened 3 times in a row. And the young fella, he did it pretty hard, and he finally got one in, which was terrific. And listen to this.
It's a mighty roar, isn't it? It's like grand final day when the first bounce has gone down. Anyway, it's a tough job, I would imagine. Just a little aside, the newspaper awards. Michael Voss has won The Age. Simon Black from the same club has won the Herald Sun. Simon Black gets a $40,000 ute. Michael Voss gets 2 tickets to Noosa. I think he owns some land there. I mean, I reckon Black's done pretty well, don't you?
I think Michael Voss...
You're giving a go at our paper, are you, Bruce?
No, I'm not having... It's just a fact.
I think Michael Voss might own half of Noosa, so he's going all right.
Exactly.
OK, let's keep with Brisbane for a moment. We know that Lee Matthews was pretty tough. Remember at Windy Hill all those years ago when he could flatten anything, Lee, couldn't he? I mean, even the poor... Well, just how brave is Jason Ackermanis? I mean, you know him pretty well, Wolves. A lot of respect showed to Buddha Hocking on the weekend, and why not? I mean, you can see Voss here. Look at Jason Ackermanis behind Lee, the player of the century. Up we come. You put the rabbit ears on Lee. I mean, how courageous is... Lee watches his show religiously. Jason's in trouble, I reckon, don't you?
It's not courageous, it's stupid.
Does that surprise you with Ackermanis?
No, it doesn't. Look, Jason Ackermanis is full of life and bounce, and They are a really tight team. That's the thing that I noticed watching them play down there against the Cats. They are feeling good about themselves and sharing everything, and I'm sure Lee, when he sees that, he'll have a smile.
Buddha's big day nearly didn't happen. I mean, the whole family, I mean, I'm saying this slightly with tongue-in-cheek, were almost wiped out in one horrible moment. His daughters and his wife and his son, Lachlan, behind the banner. They're ready, waiting, and suddenly the players come crashing through. And look at Buddha gets one in the back, bang, hanging on for dear life.
And he's comforting his little girl at the time. You'd think he would have moved out of the way. I suppose he had other things on his mind, but yeah, it wasn't very pretty watching the other side.
What was lovely about being down there, when he finished, when the game was over, Buddha walked around the boundary line. He would have touched hands and shaken hands, I reckon, with hundreds of people, and then he took his boots off and gave them to a young fella who was leaning over the fence. It was just a really nice touch.
Should it make up for all the horrible things we've been reading about during the week? The 6 needles a day and the decompression chamber in the back garden.
Well,
and
he's having a good finish to his career. I mean, he is. I wonder if Michael Long is going to get the same chance. I just wonder where he's at the moment. We're going to ask James Hurd about that pretty shortly. Speaking of good family men like Buddha, James will join us right after this.
We're talking footy.
Hurd is the target. Oh, good mark, guys. Played on. Hurd goes for another one. Oh, James, you're a little champion, you are. Jimmy boy.
I'd show more respect now, wouldn't I? I'd call you Sir James. Round 11, 1993, apparently. I've never heard it before, but yeah, it's been a good journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been good fun. It's, what was it, 8 or 9 years ago, and it's been great, a lot of fun.
Premiership later that year?
Yeah, premiership, and then one last year, so hopefully another one this year.
And a few not-so-good times in between, I guess?
Yeah, 97, 98 and 99 were pretty upsetting and pretty disappointing for me, but I think they give you a lot of strength for the last couple of years, and definitely been able to look back at those years and appreciate football a lot more.
At the start of this year, it was hard for me to just imagine how you could front up again. I mean, you'd just done so much last year. You'd won so many different individual awards. You'd won the flag, you'd won the Norm Smith medal, you'd staged this great comeback from injury. How hard has it been? And can you take us through what you see as being the big differences?
Oh, it hasn't been hard at all. I mean, football for me is my life, really. It's something I love to play, and I'm missing so much of it for 3 years, a couple of years ago. Last year was sort of, it was just a funny year, it wasn't real. And this year's sort of been coming back to reality and playing some good, consistent football, and really week in, week out, training. Like, last year I wasn't able to train, this year I've been able to train and play, and it's just been able to get back in the football routine, which has been so enjoyable.
James, it's interesting to hear you say football is your life, because, you know, I don't know you well, but I get the impression that you could step away from football and be happy and content and have other things that would interest you?
To a certain extent, that's right, but it would leave a huge hole in my life to the point that it'd never be replaced, I don't think. I think people might get that perception of me that there are other things I could do, but in reality, if I look at my childhood and look at the last 10, 15 years, football's been that one constant and something that I love doing, and when one day it all finishes, it'll be a very upsetting day for me and leave a great hole in my life.
So what's the game plan? I mean, if you look ahead.
For the rest of my career?
Yeah.
I've got another contract. I've got a contract for another 4 years, so I'll definitely play that out and hopefully...
what does that take you to, 32?
To 29, Bruce, and then I'll play on for another couple of years, hopefully.
That's another joke, Bruce.
I don't get many jokes, and that one I went straight through, I know. So that takes you to...
31, 32, yeah. Yeah, I won't tell you exactly when it takes me to.
Michael Long trick, isn't it?
Longy taught me that long ago to change your birth date when you're about 26, 27. Put it back a couple of years.
Hurdy, I'm going to look it up, actually, just to tell you, you're born on the 4th of the 2nd of 1973.
Was I?
Yeah.
Interesting.
32.
Exactly.
What about... it wasn't real for you last year?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's just everything went right. I mean, to come from where I'd come from, where everything went wrong, and then suddenly, bang, everything's gone right. I come in, I play one Ansett Cup game, and I'm holding up the Ansett Cup. Then the next 22 rounds, we lose one game. Our average winning margin was 40 or 50 points. I'm playing alongside some of the, you know, potentially could be the greatest players. You know, Matthew Lloyd could one day be one of the greatest players I've ever played, playing with Mark McCurry, Michael Long, all these great players who are great people. And then we go on and sweep the final series and win the Norm Smith medal and the grand final. That is more than a dream, I think, and that's what happened. And to say it wasn't real is really what I believe.
And what about the two teams, the 2000 team and the 2001 team?
I think the 2001 team is yet to reach its potential, and it's had some significant injuries to get over, and that those players are starting to filter back into the side and get some good form. So I'll tell you in a few weeks how they compare, but I don't think you've seen the real potential of the 2001 team as yet.
Did you feel against Carlton when you looked to badly injure your ankle that it might be it for the season?
I didn't know whether it was going to be it, but I felt at the time that it was pretty sore and I'd done some significant damage, and as it turned out, I was lucky to get away with just missing a week, but at the time I was thinking there was going to be a big problem and I was going to miss quite a few games.
How did that feel?
It was pretty disappointing. Yeah, look, if it had have happened and that was it, well, you get on with it, but luckily it wasn't, and I'm here to play a few more games.
The captaincy, James, do you enjoy that? Have you learnt from other people what captaincy is about, how to lead a team? Do you feel you're a better captain now than you were 2-3 years ago?
Oh, definitely. When I was first given the captaincy, I didn't really know what it was all about, and I was probably a person more worried about myself than the team, and thought to be a good captain you just had to play well and that was it. But I've met a few people along the way who have taught me a few things, and people within the club, and also just look back on my experience with Mark Thompson, Gary O'Donnell as captain, and see what they did with the players and learn a lot from those two. And then she just given me a lot of advice. John Quinn, our fitness advisor, and actually Michael Long has probably given me as much advice as anyone on captaincy and the way he treats people, which has been excellent.
Let's talk about Longy in a moment. Do you have a licence from Sheeds to A, talk to the players at quarter time before he comes down like you did against the Kangaroos, B, go into the centre when you know that you need some drive from there, C, you go to the back flank when you need to get a kick back there?
Not so much positional changes, but if I think I can talk to the players, Sheeds has always said, if you think you've got something to say it. Don't hold back. And I don't know if I've ever moved in the centre without being told, or being told that you can rotate with Jason Johnson or Joe Mercedes, when the two of you feel like it. So.
The Johnsons and Dean Solomon and some of the younger, more, boys will be boys sort of blokes, when you say the captaincy became more serious last year,
yep.
And obviously you were playing, so you were a better captain from that viewpoint, but did you spend a lot of time with them off the field?
I spent a fair bit of time with them. They're great guys, and they've got great characters. Mark Johnson, Jason and Dean Solomon are very different people, and they're a lot of fun to be around.
What do you tell them when you're with them, though?
Just enjoy your life and have a go at everything. I really, and they do. And I think that you don't want to have any regrets, and that's one of the big themes that I've got in my life. You don't regret anything, and to do that you have to have a go, and you take chances and you make mistakes. And don't be afraid to make those mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you won't learn too much.
Do you feel like there's enormous pressure on you? Because you've got this perfect image, haven't you? I mean, do you have it with Solomon and the Johnson boys, this perfect image?
Oh, they know a few home truths, I suppose, that other people don't know. But, look, it's part of being part of a football club. You get to know people better than other people do. That perfect image is, I think, something that's portrayed by the media and by the football club, maybe. But the real me is so far from that, it's not funny.
Do you sit in on match committee, James?
Now and then, not as a regular thing, no.
And sorry, Caro, what about coaching? Do you, now at this stage of your career, do you start to think, well, perhaps I could be a coach one day? And if you do you sort of put notes down, and are you preparing yourself for that?
I'm preparing myself for coaching. I really don't know how. When I watch a game, I don't seem to be analytical in the way that coaches need to be. So I don't feel that at the moment, I would be a good coach. So I probably don't see myself as being a coach. That might change in the future, but when I watch a game and you say, who are the best players, I couldn't tell you. And maybe that's something I haven't got in me, or maybe that's something you learn.
And if Michael Long taught you a few things, how do you deal with Michael now, going through what he must be going through? I mean, we read in the papers that this injury might turn out to be more serious. He might miss the finals altogether. I mean, that must be a pretty shattering situation for him.
Look, if Michael Long was to miss the finals, it would be shattering for him and for us as a club. That'd be, but obviously more so for him. But I believe, and I'm sure he believes, that won't happen. My feeling is that he'll play a full game in the seniors in the reserves on Saturday, and I think if he plays that, then he's obviously a chance to play in the seniors. You keep hearing about Longy's knee not being right, but I saw him at training during the week last week, and I saw him play the week before, and didn't look too much wrong with him then. I know he didn't play on the weekend, but I have to see. I'm not exactly sure the reason for that, but I would expect him to play this week in the reserves and put himself up for a chance in the finals. And to have Michael Long playing 2.5, 3 quarters in a finals game, because the 4 players on the bench don't all play 4 quarters. And if you take someone who can play that, it would be pretty amazing.
But you're in a situation late in the year where you've got maybe Dean Wallace, who's played a quarter of footy.
Yep.
Blumfield has been out for ages, but obviously getting fit and long. It's not the balanced, settled side that you had last year. Now, Dean Wallace, I mean, what's he doing at training? I mean, is he doing anything to suggest to you that he might play this week, as been talked about today?
I think he's second best in the reserves on the weekend, played 4 quarters, has trained fully for 2 weeks. So that's a full game, plays a full game this week, and then who knows what can happen.
Do you reckon you need him right now?
I think we do. I think without Aaron Henneman, we definitely need another tall defender, and he's the one to step up, I'd say.
You form against the top 3 of the other big teams, Port Adelaide and also Brisbane.
Yep.
You look compare with Carlton. Against the top 3, you're 1 and 4. Carlton haven't been beaten by Brisbane, Port or Essendon this year. Against the rest of the 8, you've got a complete record, and Carlton have got a strange record, haven't they? So what does that tell us at the end of the year? Anything at all?
I don't know. Look, it tells us that we've been beaten, but we've only been beaten by 5 or 6 points by those sides.
Brisbane was 28, wasn't it?
Yeah, sorry,
Yep.
You're right. The Brisbane one was a blowout, but it wasn't as though we're out of the game either. It didn't feel like we were out of the game. It was an ordinary night in the way that we play. We didn't play well, but we'd still back ourselves against those sides. We still believe that coming into the finals, we can beat those sides, and you have to believe that. Carlton
would fancy themselves against you too. I mean, what is it about Carlton that you have problems with?
Well, we've won. I think we're 7 from 10 against Carlton. And last year we had a perfect record. This year we've lost 2. All I can say is let's play Carlton and see what happens in the finals, and play them as soon as we can to get all this speculation off our back. I'd prefer if we played Carlton the first final, and then if you win, you win. If you lose, well, you know where you are.
Does it give you more satisfaction beating Carlton than any other team?
It gives us more satisfaction if that's a grand final and whoever you beat. No, I don't think so. The next 4 weeks, I don't really care who we beat, as long as we beat everyone we play.
Mark Harvey, his name keeps coming up as a senior coach, and he's one of the favourites for the Fremantle job. Is he ready to take that job? Or do you hope he doesn't go? Have you talked to him about it? I've
talked to him about it a little bit. I hope he doesn't go, but I think he probably should go, and I think he's probably the coach that they could have. He's an excellent coach, assistant coach. I don't think he could do anything more as assistant coach for us. He's passionate, he knows his football, he's very good tactically, and he communicates with the players very well. I think the rest is, I suppose you have to learn on the job, and I think he's ready to go. For us, I hope he stays, because he really has the players' support, and the way he talks and the way he talks about football is very passionate. I think you need that to be a coach.
James, Dean Rioli and Mark Mercuri might make the difference. I mean, they both Rolls-Royce type players. Both have had up and down seasons. I mean, injury for both of them, haven't they? They haven't been settled. They both show great signs on the weekend.
Yeah, Merckx is just a terrific player, and I've played with him for 10 years. And
the best player you've played with at Essendon?
The best player I've played with, yeah. Look, you could throw Matthew Lloyd in there, but Lloydie's only 23, so wait and see what happens with Lloydie. But I believe that. And Dean Rioli, he is just a magician. When he gets the ball and you're around him, you're pretty sure it's going to come to you, or something's going to happen out of it. I just hope he stays fit, because if he stays fit, the rest of the season, then has a full year, you'll have a pretty special player to watch, and it'll really bring the crowds in.
James, if the Bombers had an Achilles heel, it could be said that it's the clearances from the ruck contests. And we have a look at it here in your 4 losses this year. The opponents have had 172 hit-outs to Essendon's 132, and then it goes through those 4 losses. Porter 29 to Barnes 13, Keating 31, Hill 14, Primus 20, Barnes 10, and the round 18 loss to Carlton, Allen and Porter up against Barnes. It's probably common knowledge that your rucks aren't the greatest, but they certainly give you a contest. At ground level, players like Jason Johnson and Mercuri and yourself are very, very good. Is it an area there that you really put a lot of work into, knowing that you haven't got dominant players in the ruck?
Yeah, we put a lot of work into it, and I think we've got 2 of the smartest ruckmen going around, and John Barnes and Steve Alessio, they really are smart in the way that we talk about it, and we have plans, and they've had their fair share of injuries, and I can only say that their performance in the finals will be excellent, and I really believe that, and I believe that they'll give us the drive that will hopefully take us all the way, because that's where it starts. I mean, you look at the Brisbane midfield and the Adelaide midfield, and they've been terrific in the Carlton midfield. And I suppose if we want to compete in the finals, we need to be as good as those midfields. And
Port Adelaide you could throw into that mix as well in terms of midfield strength. So the top teams are very strong in that area. Look, we'll take a break.
Sure.
We've got the Tigers and the Bombers this week, and we'll talk about Richo after this.
Tuesday night, we're talking footy.
What a night Matthew Richardson had last Friday night. In fact, if he kicked 6-2 instead of 2-6, I reckon we would be talking about it forever. He is such a talent, such an athlete, and such a footballer. Welcome back, James Hird, our guest. He's going to be a problem this week.
Yeah, he's the great unknown in the finals, I think, Matthew. I think last year he missed that, and it's taken him up until now to come good. And you can understand why that is, because injuries take a long time to get over. He's just starting to play some very good football, and yeah, he's a pretty scary sight when he's in full flight.
His last 15 minutes was extraordinary on Friday night. This is the famous now last mark where he'd come back after the blood rule and had kicked 1-6 at this point and admitted afterwards he was pretty nervous. But having a second look at the mark, Wolsey, I mean, was there a free kick there against him or not?
I didn't notice the push in the face to young David Teague. We'll see it there. Teague's running in and Richo puts the hand out, cops him right in the face. Richo's got his eyes on the ball the whole way, and I think that's okay, because his eyes are on the ball, he's got a hand out for a bit of protection. Okay, it hit a player in the face, but I reckon the umpire made the right call.
I suppose what's the difference to jumping on a player's back and taking the mark and you hit them in the head with your knee? I mean, you've eyes on the ball, you don't know what you're doing, but are you allowed to touch people above the shoulders? I think the rule says you're not allowed to, so interesting.
So free kick against Richo, you reckon?
Who knows?
Yeah, it's a tough call.
Maybe.
Look, you're not going to say that tonight, are you?
No, that's right.
You talked about Richo in September. He hasn't played any finals at all. I mean, how exciting. There are a couple of other players, centre-half forwards or flanker types, with Whitnell playing everywhere at the moment. Whitnell has played a bit of finals football, but Tredray's played so little. Their form on the weekend was quite outstanding. Look at the marks column, the three of them.
It's just terrific, Bruce, to have key forwards in good form, and I think one of the best parts of our game is the marking, and to see Richardson, Tredray, Whitnell, and the Bombers have got Lucas and James taking high marks. That's what we want to see in September.
And Tredray did it early on Saturday night. This was a big game. I mean, Port turned it into a rout, but Tredray put his mark on this match in the first 4 minutes and basically set the scene for the rest of the night.
Gee, he looks an impressive footballer, just the build of him. He's lost a little bit of weight. I thought he bulked up a little bit too much, but I reckon he's lost 3 or 4 Ks from last year, and he's really going for his marks. And noticed him on his left foot. He's got full confidence to spin on his left foot and kick from 60 metres out. Yeah, and he seems to be running a lot more around the half-forward line. I think last year, you're right, he was a lot more stagnant, but this year his mobility is just excellent.
He and Corns provided big problems for you when they beat you in Adelaide, didn't they?
Yeah, they kicked a few goals against us, and their mobility probably hurt us for their size.
We were scratching our heads last week, that handball that you tried through the legs. Do you remember this one to Mark Johnson?
Yeah, no, I saw Jono there, and I thought if I get it out to him, he'll play on, but it probably didn't go according to plan, but we got away with it, kicked a goal, which was lucky. I don't think I'd do it again, Bruce.
Good thinking. You might have rubbed off on Lance Whitnell a bit, because he tried a couple of different things on the weekend. I mean, how clever is Whitnell, do you reckon?
Yeah, he's probably, well, if not the smartest going around. He's as smart as they come, because he's thinking so quick. I played on him last year against Carlton, and his leads and double leads and fake leads were as good as I've played on.
He just, to think like he did, I mean, and battles on the end of it. Just feel like Whitnell, Tredray and Richardson could have huge influences come September.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. Whitnell's poise, I mean, this is almost Dean Rioli and Darren Jarman-like. I mean, no one can touch him, and he just knows he's going to kick it. Low, lean back goal. Rioli could do that, couldn't he?
Yeah, Rioli could do that. Not many could, I don't think. Like, most people would panic in that situation when the ball goes over their head, but the good players know what to do. James, what position do you play? Are you half-forward flanker, centre-half forward, midfielder?
He's tried to pick the All-Australian team today, so he wants to know where to put you.
Well, we couldn't put him in 3 spots, Bruce.
I suppose sort of between the centre line and forward. I think most half-forwards play that sort of position now. I think I play a half-forward type role. But if you took your half-forwards, your wingman and your half-back line players, they all seem to rotate and play the same sort of role. I mean, Carlton just to have half-backs and half-forwards running all over the place. Who knows where? Hickmott and those sort of guys and Lappin are playing half the time. They're in your full-back line, the full-forward line. Football is not a game of positions anymore. Your full-forward and your full-back might have positions, but I really doubt anybody else does.
Except Kevin made it pretty clear a few years ago where he wasn't going to play you, didn't he? When he said that he didn't want you to, you know, your body to age too quickly and the wear and tear, and he wasn't going to play you at centre-half forward for the rest of your career.
Yeah, I think he'd seen what had happened to some players over time.
Well, he talked about Dermot Brereton.
Yeah, very different players, Dermot and myself, but, Dermot's career really was shortened because of the injuries he had, and I'm glad he's chosen to play him in different positions where, for obviously your body, but variety as well. Playing one position all your career, you can sort of get a bit stale, I think.
Is that how you felt at the time when he said it, or at the time were you a bit...
I wanted to get on the ball, so I was quite happy he said it. I've always wanted to play on the ball. I'd love to play ruckman over a whole year, week in, week out, but just seems to be, if it's not Jason, some player just keeps popping up and doing a good job there.
Wayne Carey's been hammered, and hammers.
Yep.
Centre-half forward. I'm sure you would have heard what Ricky Nixon said last week about giving Wayne a couple of weeks off.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Where have you been for the last
week?
week?
Perth for the last 4 days, so we've missed out on footy a little bit.
What do you think about football managers talking about whether players should play or not?
I think that the football matters should stay between the club and the players. I think that the managers do one role, but when they play and who they play against is the role of the player and the coaches and the footy staff.
I don't know about that. I mean, occasionally Ricky does things that I disagree with, Ricky Nixon, and I said last week that it wasn't really his business, but you would assume that Wayne Carey would have given his imprimatur to that comment, and if he hadn't, then he would have been pretty upset about it. But by all reports, he wasn't that upset with what Ricky Nixon said. I mean, sometimes we bag player managers, but the players are the ones who are letting them say what they say too sometimes.
James, you had Ricky Nixon as your manager?
Ricky and I had a relationship, where Ricky would, I suppose, I wasn't under contract with Ricky. He would do some of my promotional contracts. I was part of his Club 10, had a great relationship with each other, and until I suppose I chose to do my own stuff. In a position in my life, 2 kids, a job, I'm working. There was probably not as much need for that role, and taking on my own stuff with another friend of mine.
So does that mean that you're sort of almost impossible to manage because you've got so much?
I'm not impossible. I've got a guy looking after me at the moment called Ben Crow, but I think my wife probably thinks I'm impossible to manage. She has a hard time.
We might take a break. Just on that note, and we'll discuss it during the commercial break, but Danny Frawley, we're going to have a look at Danny after this.
We're talking footy.
Told you we'd talk about Danny Frawley. Now, on the left is round 1 2000. On the right is last weekend. Now, boy, it's only, 18 months? How much has he aged, do you reckon, Caro?
Well, we actually mentioned this to him in a radio interview on the weekend, and he said it was a small price to pay for sitting 4th on the ladder at the end of round 21.
Exactly.
I don't know. He made a few good comments. He even said that one day you take time to smell the roses, the next day they come back and prune you. And I think he just picked that one up out of nowhere. He's been entertaining, if nothing else.
Look, he would have
Good luck to him.
He's done well. He would have been pleased with Brad Ottens. Roy Wright was pretty pleased with that, the dual premiership, dual Brownlow medalist ruckman from Richmond. Have a look at Ottens chase Pickett down.
Just terrific, wasn't it? We were there, Bruce, and to see the big ruckman not give up on the chase and actually get a hand on him and force the ball to spill free, that is inspirational. Look at that final lunge.
And you saw Pickett at the beginning thinking that he was fine and...
outrun the ruckman.
And Roy Wright said after the game, that was the most inspirational team-lifting thing I've seen. So it's a real jet. He's going to be... Ottens and Richardson, they're going to be tough for you.
Yeah, they're...
Which one does Fletcher get? We're going to tell us.
I think last time he played on Richardson, so it'll be interesting to see, yeah. They're both terrific players, and hope they have a quiet night on Friday night.
Do you like to kick with the breeze when you win the toss?
Yes, no, I definitely would have kicked the breeze, especially after seeing what Sean Wren did. I think everyone will kick with the breeze now.
Instructed to do it from Peter Schwab, because they'd set up they wanted to know how they could be set up in the first half hour.
You understand that with coaches. They like to take control of everything, and if they can take control of something, they will, but it backfired, I suppose.
I don't think you want to have the Crow crowd cheering the goals that they put through early in the game, which they ended up doing. So, but at the same time, good to see some boldness being displayed.
Simon Goodwin's getting better, All-Australian last year. I mean, he's not the forgotten man with McLeod and Rashudo, but he's very much the third man in that lineup. He punched 2 goals into the breeze in the last quarter that were so decisive, and there was a real purpose about him.
He's a terrific player. He's played on me a number of times, and I haven't been able to get a kick on him. So I rate Simon Goodwin very highly.
Adelaide don't have any high markers, big marking. How would Nick Holland and Simon Goodwin go, do you reckon, if Hawthorn wanted to do a swap with the Crows? Who'd be getting the better deal?
I don't think Hawthorn would let Nick Holland go. I reckon the Hawks rate Nick Holland as their #1 player.
Have you had some mail, have you, Bruce?
Oh, you know, you hear things around the traps, don't you? But you never know. You never know. Nick's, not get Nick's, but, you know, just Nick's 6 goals, 7. He liked this last one. Reckon this was all right. He's got some talent, hasn't he?
It's a Peter Dacos goal. And he's pretty happy with it.
Happy about it.
You played on him?
6 goals, 7. Briefly, not a lot, but 6 goals, 7, 13 shots a goal is, I don't know many players have done that.
You played on Wanganeen?
Yeah, played on Gav 4 or 5 weeks ago. Had a great duel there. That was a lot of fun to play. And a guy I played with and rated so highly, and watched at training. His agility and his ability to spoil from any position is pretty amazing.
I reckon he's the key to Port. Primus and Treadray too, but he can play midfield, forward, back. He's the Mr. Fix-It man. He might be the bloke that takes the premiership off you. You didn't get much for him when he went left, did you?
No, we didn't get much at all. I don't think we got anything. But his kicking too is sensational. Watch him kick, it's always a perfectly weighted kick, always hits his target very well.
Do you think the captaincy being taken from him is something that may not have affected him? In fact, he might say, look, I'm happy that I can just go out and play my game and worry about myself.
He's a better player for it. I think you look at him in the way he's playing this year compared to his previous 2 years, he's a much better player for not having that burden on him.
He just went so quickly, didn't he? And well, you two were the same age. You've got on reasonably well at Essendon. Did the relationship continue when he...
Not so much, no. It was, I suppose, he living in Adelaide was a bit hard, and we both got married around that time, and that obviously not as much time, but it was very disappointing for us when Gav left. I mean, a lot of us had grown up with Gav, played footy with him, and I think it was disappointing that he wanted to go back to Adelaide and not play footy with us.
If you play Port in the finals, do you reckon Mark Williams will play him on you?
Yeah, I have the last 2 times, so I would expect it again and looking forward to it.
One thing about Port, they can bang it from outside 50. We know Dew can. Burgoyne's pretty good. Fabian Francis.
Yeah, he can bang them from anywhere, Fabian Francis.
Last year, they were the most inaccurate kicking team in the AFL. This year, they've just turned it round completely, and you see Francis from well outside 50, and he doesn't get too fussed about it because he's done it a dozen times this year.
He's done it a lot, and it really hurts you as a side. If a player can get the ball on that square and put it through, it means your defence is all out of whack. I think they're very effective players, guys who can do that.
Well, Gary Moorcroft probably took the mark of, certainly this year, I reckon, anyway, but there was a good one on the weekend. We're going to have a look at it right after this.
Tuesday night, we're talking footy.
Next, the exiled boat people remain stuck at sea as Indonesia also shuts them out. The Goodwill Games begin in Brisbane and Jurassic Park 3 roars into Sydney.
He's done some extraordinary things this year, Russell Robertson, and boy, he's mercurial, he's exciting, and he looks to have a great future. He's probably not going to be the most consistent player all time, but he's going to do some damage. That was a great mark on the weekend. Caro, it's always yours, the last one.
No, well, we see Melbourne and we know there's going to be a lot of political stuff happening after Sunday with Melbourne. Did you ever get involved with the politics at Essendon? I mean, I read that you were part of this player group who was looking at having an effect on the coach's future.
Oh, there's no player group. No, I didn't have any effect on Kevin Sheedy, except to say that, you know, we hope he's there for as long as he can be. You know, a coach that supported me so much when I was injured and had some hard times, I would hope he's there till the end of my career.
And what about the rest of your teammates, some of whom you mightn't be able to afford to keep next year?
Well, I hope they're there. Who knows? That's the club matter, end of the year, and we'll see what happens.
Are you playing a role in that at the moment?
No, definitely not. I'm staying as far out of that as possible, except to say that I hope you stay because it's a great club.
James, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank
5 very important weeks coming up in the life of you and your club. All the best, firstly for Richmond. James Hird, our guest tonight. It was terrific on the weekend that Dean Kemp, Troy Luff and also Gary Hocking had a real chance to say goodbye to the thousands of fans who have adored them over the years and really appreciated the way they've played their footy. Good night.
talking footy.